Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Amr Awadallah, CEO and founder of Vectara, a Gen AI platform that's raised over $53 million in funding. Amr, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited for this conversation. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your background, and specifically I want to talk about your flight from Egypt to the United States in 1995. Take us back. What was going on inside your head as you were making that trip?
Yeah, I think one of the things I say is immigrants leaving away everything behind them are by definition risk takers, which make them great entrepreneurs. I think there is a lot of analogy there. Like you're willing to leave everything behind you and start something new from nothing, with nothing around you, and you don't know if it's going to work or not. So there's a lot of analogies from that perspective. But to go back to that journey, that was in 1995. I had finished my master's and bachelor's degrees from Cairo University in Egypt, and I had the fortune of being accepted at Stanford University with a sponsorship to learn there. And that's why I came here. I came to the Silicon Valley. And that event of coming to Stanford has changed my trajectory completely as a person. Because before that, my goal in life was to be a professor and teach at school. I didn't have any goal to be an entrepreneur because my dad is a professor and he always told me, when you grow up, you're going to be a professor at university like me. So that was my only dream of life until I was 25 years old when I came. And as soon as I came to Stanford, like day one, just going from the airport to the campus, going from SFO to Stanford, you see Oracle and you see Intel and you see Yahoo and you see HP. You see all of these names that I only heard about back there in Egypt. So started like, wow, these companies are real companies. They're here. And then at Stanford, they're so good at infecting you with the entrepreneurship virus. And like they really, from day one, it doesn't matter if you're in the engineering school, law school, medical school, they right away, they have classes, how to do a business plan, how to do a pitch, how to do marketing, a mission statement, positioning statements. And then they invite the entrepreneurs, the founders of the companies to come talk to you, the successful companies to come talk to you on campus. So you get to see these founders and you look at them and it's like, wow, that guy or gal, they're normal people. They don't have wings. They don't have like halos. Because when we see them in the news, they come across that way, like Steve Jobs. Ooh, but when you meet him in real life, he's just a normal person, right? So that now implanted me with the idea of, wow, I really want to be an entrepreneur instead. I don't think I like this professorship thing.
What was the conversation like with your dad? Did he accept that or did he say, no, please?
No, he was very upset. Actually. He's very academic and he believes in the academic mission and teaching, and I respect that about him. But I love teaching, by the way. Like teaching others is something I'm very, very passionate about. It's one of the reasons why I love doing podcasts like this, to be honest. It's the only way I can get that teaching energy out. But no, he was not happy about that decision. And in fact, one of the things I did at Stanford is midway through my PhD, I took a leave of absence. I left the PhD program and I started my first company. The company was called Activia. That was started in 1999, and we were acquired by Yahoo in 2000 in 1 year, which is, I didn't believe that would happen. Like I built a company and 1 year it gets acquired. And we were 5 people and that company got acquired for $9 million. And we hadn't raised any funding back then. And yeah, that was like, I went from having nothing. Literally, when I came to the US, I only had like $1,000 in my pocket. And I was living, me and my wife, we had to get coupons from the California state to get milk for her to drink so she can breastfeed our young baby, to being a multimillionaire. Like it's something that boggled my mind in terms of how that came to be. So my dad calls me up and say, hey, Amr, you need to go back and finish your PhD after Yahoo acquired us. And I'm like, Dad, I don't really need the PhD anymore. I'm very successful. I have a great position at Yahoo. I have more money than you made in your entire career. I don't need to go back and finish the PhD. But he kept nagging me, and eventually did it. Actually, I went back and finished the PhD. And I think it's for 2 reasons. It's one, for him. I really wanted him to be proud of me. But the other reason is for me. Like I usually tell people, you'd only get the PhD in one of 2 reasons. The first reason is you really want to be a professor, because you cannot be a professor in academia if you don't have a PhD. That's required. Same thing, if you want to be a deep researcher, then you need it. The other reason why I want to get a PhD is just like the reason why you want to get an Olympic medal. Why do we get an Olympic medal? It's because of that goal, of the achievement of getting this nice circular goal thing. And same thing, there's something about getting these 3 letters of I have a PhD that makes you so fulfilled, right? And if you have that, then yes, go for it. Other than these two reasons, absolutely not. It's a waste of time.
I can see that. I can see how that's an amazing accomplishment. Going back a little, so you get financial success. Was there a moment where you really felt like, whoa, this is crazy? And I'll tee it up with a story that another guest shared. They said, they sold their company. They went from having nothing to having millions and millions of dollars. And the big moment for them was when they went to the gas station to fill up their car and they just filled it up all the way. They said forever they would just put it in $20 or $50, like whatever they had available. And it was unlimited. And they were just mind blown. Like that was the moment for them. Did you have any moments like that where it's like, wow, life's different. Life's changed?
No, it took me time to adapt to it. No, it didn't hit me like in one shock like that. I was still very frugal in my spending because I also have my engineering mind, which always trying to optimize and not overspend on anything. I always want to get a great value. So no, it didn't hit me in that way. Maybe the only thing I splurged on, and I actually undid that splurge, is I bought a red Mustang convertible. And I only had it for 1 year, and then I grew out of that phase and just sold it off, actually. Because I believe it's unsafe to be driving a convertible, to be honest. Again, my engineering mind kicking in. So that was the only thing. But other than that, no, I was still very measured in how I accepted that new wealth coming my direction.
And what was that mindset? So you're at Yahoo, you go back, finish the PhD. Obviously there's Cloudera you founded. We're going to skip a big part of that story to save it for a future podcast. But was your plan to just like keep building companies, or did any part of you wanted to say like, hey, maybe just relax, take it easy, like maybe stop? Like what was driving you at that point?
So the plan was to build more companies because the high of building, you get an amazing dopamine rush when you spend all this time building this amazing thing that becomes a success in the world, right? And I equate it actually to having kids. You just shared with me that you recently had a newborn. That dopamine hit of seeing that newborn when they come out for the first time, the happiness, the enjoyment, it's some of the highest moments in your life, right? When you experience that. And the same thing happens with creating a company, actually. Like the same thing happened for me again with Cloudera. I will share the full story later. But at Cloudera, one of the highest points of my lifetime period was the IPO. Like the IPO, you go into the New York Stock Exchange, they give you a hammer, and then you hammer this bell. It's a very old tradition. We don't need it anymore because computers are doing all the work. But you still hammer this bell, launching the beginning of the trading of your stock. And that moment is exactly the same moments that you experienced when your newborn came into life. Like it just sends you so much positivity that makes you want to do it again, right? So that's kind of what drives me. The creation of a startup, it truly drives me. The other thing that drives me is, and this sounds a bit selfish, but we all gonna die one day. And even our amazing kids, they will live a great time, but they will also die one day, right? Except, what's the name of the guy in South LA that's trying to live forever? Brian Johnson? Yeah. Except if he figures it out. But I don't think he will, by the way. But the key point is the best way to leave a positive impact on the world is if you can create something that will live beyond you, right? And we can do that in many ways. One way is podcasts like you're doing right now. Hopefully these podcasts will live a long time after you. Writing a great book does that. Doing a great movie does that. Creating a great company also does that, right? So Steve Jobs is gone, but we still remember him because of that amazing creation that he did. Hewlett Packard, HP, they're both gone, but we still remember them because of that legacy they left behind. So that's another thing that drives me is I want to leave a legacy behind me when I'm gone from this world.
What do you think in terms of legacy? Like, how do you define that? Is it that you were a technology builder? Or like, I read a book a while back and it had a pretty dark chapter. You had to write your own obituary and say like, here's what you did. And like, I did it. And it was like scary to see like writing that down. Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Again, leaving a positive impact on the world. Like I leave the world with a mark that is the Amr mark. Amr left this mark, and that mark made the world a better place. Like that's how I look at it. And that's how I define success. Like success is that. Like success is you were able to contribute in a very positive way to the world around you. And if you achieve that, then you now left a positive legacy, because you can also leave a negative legacy. And that is absolutely not what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do a negative legacy.
Yeah, but I like the technique of thinking of your obituary because that's long-term planning. And it's always good to have this slow thinking of not just relying on your intuition and your immediate needs and desires, which are a bit hedonistic, and our lizard brain control them. No, let your intellectual brain think about the endpoints and work backwards from there. So that's such a great exercise. I like that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it comes from my boy here, Marcus Aurelius, the statue. I'm really big into Stoicism, or I should say I'm trying to get more into Stoicism. And that's like one of the teachings is memento mori, I believe is the phrase. I have it somewhere in my office, like a little coin, and you're supposed to keep in your pocket, like remind yourself, like you're going to die someday. And it's like a humbling reminder of that. But I like that. I think that's a very helpful exercise, even though it's like a bit scary sometimes.
Yeah, but it's funny you mentioned the coin thing. So at Vectara, we do that. Our head of revenue at Vectara, he's also really into stoicism, big time. And he makes us make these coins. I have one right now. I don't know if you can see it. And on the other side of that coin, there is the thing we're trying to achieve, right? So every few months, I'm not going to show you the other side because it's confidential, but every few months, he comes up with a new coin for the entire team. This is what we're all working towards right now. And we align, and it's actually working. It's actually a great technique to be adopting in our life. Yeah.
Those listening in, that was not staged. That may sound staged, right? I mean, like you have a coin. We did not talk about that pre-interview. That was all organic and authentic. That's awesome. Yeah. I love the coins. I think they're a valuable reminder.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode.
Now, just to give the audience a bit more context there, I think everyone listening in knows I have another podcast called Unicorn Builders. We interview founders who built billion-dollar companies. You and I agreed at the start of this that we're going to split this into 2 different episodes. So for those wondering, that's why we're not going to go super deep in Cloudera. There's obviously an incredible story there, but we want to also do that story justice along with everything that you're building today. That's a perfect transition. Let's talk about what you're building today. What's the company do? What's the product?
Yeah, so the company is Vectara. It's the logo you just saw on the coin I displayed there a few seconds ago. And Vectara, what we do is we help large enterprises combat a problem that's called RAG sprawl. So what is RAG sprawl? First, I have to define what's the word RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. And Retrieval Augmented Generation is the technique that you use to build AI assistants and AI agents that are accurate, that don't make up stuff. If you're using ChatGPT or others, every now and then it will give you an answer that's like, that's not true, actually, right? And that's okay for us as consumers because we can self-correct and self-check. But if you're using it in a medical situation, a legal situation, a financial situation, a manufacturing situation, a government decision-making situation, no, you can't have these errors. You have to squash them completely. So RAG is one of the key techniques with which you do that. And we are one of the most advanced companies in terms of doing that. And we're doing it by both finding the right information, all the documents that you have, all the books that you have, all the knowledge that you have in your organization for the question you're asking right now, for the task that you're asking the AI agent or AI assistants to do right now. What are the most relevant needles in the haystack that are needed for that answer? And the accurate needles in the haystack, because sometimes you can have an old needle, like you can have the HR policy from 2 years ago versus the HR policy from last month, which is the more current one, or the HR policy from the financial advice from Brett, which is a lot more accurate than the financial advice from Joe, who lies a lot. I'm just making that up, right? So you need to have these algorithms that find the most important needles in the haystack, and then you give them to the generative model, which is the large language model, and then it produces a response. But even when we do that, that's called grounding the model in the truth. Even when we ground the model in the truth, these models sometimes still hallucinate. They add things from their own brain, just like we humans do sometimes as well. So even when you do that, you still have to have a fact checker. We call it a hallucination detection model that detects any errors in that response and any deviations from what the true facts were, and then corrects that. So you have a much more better answer. So that's kind of really what we focus on, is building that pipeline end to end. So what is RAG sprawl? RAG sprawl is there's many companies that are going and building this by hand. They're building this entire pipeline by hand. And they would have 20 different implementations in the company, all done in different ways for serving different applications and different workflows within that company. And that makes it impossible now for the IT team to govern that and control that. Like, how can I control the accuracy? How can I control the security, the access control, that any of these models don't release it? Leak information should not be leaking, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing is you want to have a standard way for the developers to be building as well. If every one of them is doing DIY and building it in their own way, when that developer leaves, you're hosed now. Like, you don't know how to maintain that system. By having a common platform that they're all leveraging in the same way, you have continuity in terms of having the platform continue in the future. So in a nutshell, 2 things. Number 1, we help enterprises build AI agents and AI assistants that are accurate, that are secure, and that are explainable, meaning they explain how they came up with the conclusions. And number 2, we help the IT arms of these organizations govern all of their AI agents and AI assistants within their organization. So that's a very long way of saying what Vectara does.
Now, obviously, you've had a lot of success in your career, and there's, one thing I know about founders who've had success like that. It's, I wouldn't say easy to get funding, but it's probably much more straightforward to get investors to back you in what you're doing. For you, what was it about this problem? Because I'm guessing you could have been sitting there saying, like, there's all these problems I could solve. Like, why RAG sprawl? Why not something else when there's just endless opportunities and probably endless people who are willing and ready to back you with whatever idea that you have?
Yeah, a very good question. So I have a framework I use to decide on what I would put my times towards. And by the way, it's very similar to the framework I also decide to put my money towards as well when I do investments. I do some angel investments every now and then. And it's very simple. I like startups or companies where three elements come into place. And so what are these three elements? A technological inflection point, a new way with which things are being done that did not exist before. For my first company, that was the internet back in 1999. For my second company, that was MapReduce and Hadoop for Cloudera. And for my current company, that's large language models. It's a technological inflection point that flips everything on its head. Because these inflection points, they open gaps now for you to go in and disrupt the big players. That's why they're cool. That's why you want to look for them. Two, that there is a problem that needs to be solved, right, around this technology. And I'll come back to what the problem is in a second. So you're not just doing technology for technology's sake, you're leveraging that technology to solve a real problem that your potential customers would have. And three, a great team that can make it happen, right? These are the three ingredients I look for. If there's a great team, a great technology that is an inflection point, because there's lots of technologies which are not an inflection point, and then a great problem that's waiting to be solved, I'm all in, right? And if I see that pattern, I'm all in. So after Cloudera, I actually joined Google for a couple of years. And at Google in 2019, so that was a couple of years before ChatGPT even came to the world, they had something internally called MENA, M-E-N-A. And the name is driven from the word meaning. And it was just as good as ChatGPT. We would use it all the time, and I would chat with it every night and have conversations about many topics. But then the power of it was very clear, how powerful this is going to be. And truly, it's going to be an inflection point. There was no doubt in my mind. But also the problems were very evident as well. Oh, every now and then, this thing makes up things that are completely made up. Like, wow. So now with my Cloudera hat before, working with big banks and big law firms and governments and so on, I'm like, they're never going to accept that without having something that keeps that under control. So that was the problem, right? So I saw the problem. The problem is going to be people will need accuracy and trust in these systems so they can use them. So the problem now became clear. The technology is one of the biggest inflection points I saw in my career, in my technical career period. And then team at Yahoo, I got to meet a couple of other engineers that were just amazing engineers working on the research behind these systems. So that for me was light bulb on. This is my next startup.
You mentioned there the other inflection points. Now this one, you may have been bigger. Like, how does this compare? Maybe like take us through those other inflection points. Like, how does this one compare?
This is way bigger. This is way, way bigger, right? This is disruption of work, of how we do work around us in all kinds of different ways. A quick demo right now of a duplicate of me that is built with our platform. Let me cue that up. So this is actually one of our partners that we work with, but they built this on top of our platform. The company is called Play AI. And what Play AI allows you to do is create a clone of your voice, right? So you make a clone of your voice, and then we are the underlying AI agent system that encapsulates my knowledge. So I upload my knowledge, which is everything I know, the documents, how I like to speak, and so on. And especially when it comes to Vectara, I'm pitching Vectara. And then now there is this clone of me that just talks like me and everything that our sales team takes with them into meetings. So that's why I'm going to dial up right now. I'm going to dial up myself.
Let's see it.
Let's go, Amr here. I know it feels weird talking to yourself, by the way, but here we go. Hi, can you please tell me what does Vectara do?
Vectara is an end-to-end platform that helps businesses embed generative AI features in their applications. It focuses on accuracy.
And I heard that large language models have a problem called hallucinations. How do you solve that?
Great question. Vectara addresses hallucinations by combining Retrieval Augmented Generation with accurate index data. This means responses are based on real information, which greatly reduces errors.
And what are some use cases for, if I'm working for a bank in the financial industry, what are some use cases I could use you for?
In the financial industry, you could use Vectara for document analysis, AI-driven content feeds, and improving decision-making by retrieving relevant data quickly.
Sorry, I have a quick question for you. What do you think of President Trump?
I don't have personal opinions, but I can share that President Trump has had a significant impact on various policies and discussions in the US.
Last but not least, I heard you have some pets at home. What are their names?
Yes, they says dot spray. I have a Maltese dog named Tuta, a Pomsky called Luna, a Munchkin cat named Tuti, and two parakeets named Molokia and Yuki.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. But anyway, you get the point. It's like you define the guardrails, you define what it can say, what it cannot say, the knowledge that you want to provide, stay off the politics, don't talk about that. You define all these things. So that makes it now a lot more appropriate to deploy this in a use case that's critical, like a health use case or a financial use case.
Wow, that is awesome. That is so cool. It reminds me of Reid Hoffman had something similar. It had a video component there where he interviewed a younger version of himself. Is that the next layer of that? Or is there an additional capability there where you could have like an app?
Yeah, this is real time, right? So the one that he has with itself with videos, I think it's offline. They send the questions and then it produces and then they stitch the video together. This is really happening in real time right now. Like you could have asked a question that I didn't plan. I know I asked most questions, so it can sound like you planned this. No, you could have asked any other question you liked and it would still work in real time. Yeah.
And what was the input there? To have it have that ability to answer those questions. Like, what did you feed into it?
A bunch of documents. You write what you are comfortable with it sticking within the guardrail. And it's going to stay within that knowledge, right? It's not going to go outside of that knowledge. So if you ask a question now that's outside of that knowledge, it's going to dodge that question, right? It's going to say, I don't talk about politics. I don't have an opinion. It's going to keep it that way.
Interesting.
So you ground it. And that's the whole point. Like, that's the whole point is you ground it with your own information that you would like it to stick to as it's having this conversation.
Incredible. That was such a cool demo. Appreciate you bringing that on. I think that provides the listeners and the watchers with some more additional context to see it live in the real world.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their US and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
Now, what about different markets, different use cases? It seems like there's endless places that you could go with this technology. How do you know where to begin and focus and put effort so you don't just end up having sprawl, all over the place from a bunch of different markets?
You're absolutely right. Focus, especially in the early stages of a startup, focus is what makes or break companies. Like, many companies break because the number one reason, by the way, where companies fail is not focus, it's teams. You have the wrong people on the team. So being conscious of your team is the number one advice I give to anybody, is like, you have to be on top of that 100%. But the next thing I'll put immediately after that is lack of focus. Like, if you're trying to boil the ocean and do 100 things, you will fail, especially in the early stages of your company. I would say even in later stages as well. But you also have to realize is we don't know all the answers. Like, when you're starting a company from the beginning, you don't know which use cases and which industries are going to resonate the most with you, right? You still have to try a few things. So agility in the very early stages, agility even at the extent of every month, we might change our planning. Now we don't do that every month. We do it every 4 months. So now we can slow it down. But we're about 4 years old right now. But in the early years, we were like every month, re-examine where we're getting traction, where is the message resonating, which customer is leaning towards what use case, so we can narrow down and hone in on the ones that make the biggest difference for us. So there's no fixed answer to that. I like this advice that Jeff Bezos gives is you want to decide which doors are one-way doors versus two-way doors, right? So when it comes to use cases, they tend to be two-way doors. I mean, you can try that use case, try the messaging. It worked, great, latch on to it and keep going. It doesn't, move on to the next one. And that's kind of my advice for how you should tackle that.
What about your approach to marketing? So you've marketed a lot of different products here. What's the general marketing philosophy that you have?
It's an excellent question. I think it will boil down to two things. The first thing, which is the branding, like making sure your brand is known for something, right? Like, what I'm going to be known for, because if it's a hot market, there are going to be many other players doing it. Like in Cloudera, which we'll have a separate episode on, at the beginning of our journey, there was 30 other companies doing the same thing. For today, there's like 100 other companies. It's insane, the competition today. That's why I'm saying this wave is bigger than the previous wave, 100%. Like, it's amazing wave in terms of size. So if you don't have something that's unique about you, you're not going to stand out in the middle of that jungle. So in your branding, you need to have something that you stand for. So for us, we doubled down on accuracy and hallucination detection. And now we are known for that. Like, if you want to combat hallucination, Vectara is the company to go to. For example, if you go right now to Google and search for hallucination leaderboard, we are the number one results in terms of which company can help you with that. And that takes a lot of work to get that, but you need to have that. You need to have this focus on that. So that's the strategic aspect of marketing. And then the tactical aspect of marketing is you need to decide, are you doing a PLG motion or an enterprise sales motion? We're doing enterprise sales. And if you're doing enterprise sales, it's really like, it's known what you need to do. You need to be doing account-based marketing in the accounts that you care about. You need to be building use cases that resonate for the industry you're after, whether that be finance or health and manufacturing. You need to be having field events, going to field events like big conferences. Like next week, I'm going to be at Human X in Vegas, which is one of the biggest AI conferences of the first half of the year. But we also host your own events, and we tend to keep them events focused on the ICP, the ideal customer profile that we care about. So we'll host a dinner in different cities across the US, and then we'll invite the ICPs to come into that dinner, right? And try to attract them with a hot speaker that they want to meet, right? So they come, right? If it's just your company without the hot speaker, they might not come. So that's kind of like the one-on-one of getting leads and getting the right ICPs into the funnel that you're working on. So that's what you need to be doing. And it's easier said than done, I know.
Where did you learn this marketing approach? Looking at your background, you didn't come from a marketing background. Like, how did you become a good marketer?
So at Cloudera, I was CTO. I was not CEO as Cloudera, and I was a lot more technical in the beginning years. But my journey at Cloudera was for 12 years, from beginning to when I left. And I saw all stages, from 4 people at the beginning to 3,000 people when I left Cloudera. And then I had some amazing mentors over there, like my co-founder, Mike Olson. He founded one of the very first open source companies called SleepyCats, and he was CEO of that company. And he has amazing experience when it comes to messaging and branding and strategy. And then later on, we had Tom Riley join us as CEO, and he is an execution machine when it comes to the tactical aspects of lead generation and building the funnel. So I learned from them. Like, I have to be honest, they were my main teachers. But yeah, there's lots of good books as well you can go and read. And now you have ChatGPT, by the way, it can give you all that advice in detail. So people are so lucky today. Like, you have this coach right beside you that can give you very solid advice on how to do all these things.
Every day it blows my mind. We just built like a go-to-market strategy with Google Deep Research, and I was reviewing it. Like, that's pretty close to what I would have done. There were some small tweaks, but the fact that it made it in 5 minutes, didn't take me 5 hours, it's sort of understate just how valuable it is.
Yeah, but I will caution you with Google Deep Research. It's good, by the way, I use it as well. It does hallucinate a bit because the Google Deep Research was based on version 1.5 of Gemini, which is a bit more hallucinating model. The Deep Research from ChatGPT, the new one, it's amazing, the accuracy it produces. It still will have some hallucinations, like 1% or so, but it's really, really amazing. So I recommend you try both of these options.
Yeah, I think that's always the best practice, is not to trust everything that comes out of it. Yes. Everything should be reviewed. Don't just ship anything off or just follow the advice blindly.
Yes and no. See, the future that we're all working towards. So I call it the AI assistant phase. So we are right now in the AI assistant phase where you still have to have a human in the loop, right? So everything the AI produces, you still want to have a human that double checks it. But the future that we all want to enable, really, like us, not just Vectara, OpenAI, Anthropic, everybody's working on this, is the AI agent future where, no, it produces a final asset. It produces for you a marketing plan that is perfect. You actually don't just run it, and it actually runs it for you too, right? So that's what we're working towards. But we'll only get to that when we can truly curb down this probability of hallucination, this probability of error, because absent that, we just can't trust it to go do it. We still need the human in the loop.
How far out do you think we are from that being reality, where we're kind of done with the AI assistant phase and move into the AI agent phase? Is that 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
1 year.
Wow.
Within 1 year, yes. But why was the right reaction? The rate of speed of maturity and growth of this technology exceeds anything I've seen in my career period. We are improving, like the technology overall is improving every 6 months. Like every 6 months, it's becoming better in a significant way. Whether that be video generation, audio generation, large language models, agents. So agents just started at the beginning of this year with OpenAI launching Operator. Anthropic also has something that controls the desktop. Google is about to launch something as well. So we're at the beginning of that journey, but I would say by the end of this year, it will be perfected.
Wow, that's incredible. What do you think this world looks like? Like you have kids, like 10 years from now, like what do you think your kid's life is going to look like when AI just takes over everything like this?
So you still need to manage the AI, right? You still have somebody above the AI telling it what to do. Create this market plan for me, do this for me, and do that for me. So the human is still there, but I see the world, and I could be wrong. So this is my now philosophical view of how this will play out, is the world is going to be broken down into 90% of the people that are just living their life, just enjoying their life. They're getting universal basic income from their governments, and they're just enjoying their life, which, by the way, that's how many ancient tribes are. And still some of the tribes in Africa are like that. And they're the happiest tribes in the world. They don't work. They just live their life, go out every day and have fun with each other. Even when one of the kids dies, they're fine. The other kids are our kids too, and they don't suffer the same way we suffer when one of our kids. It's amazing to observe these tribes. So 90% of the people are going to be in that category. The remaining 10% are going to be in the people in the category of they are the ones managing the AI systems to do amazing new things, right? In the same way that, like the analogy I use is social media, what you're doing with me right now. What you're doing with me right now, 20 years ago was impossible. You couldn't do this. You had to work for CNN and have a massive budget and a studio with cameras and many, many people around. And now you by yourself doing it, right? And we see influencers on TikTok making 20, 30, or Mr. Beast now making billions, right? That would not have been possible. So that's going to be the remaining 10%. They're going to be people that are going to be leveraging the AI in amazing new ways and building massive, massive successes because of that. But these people now will have higher taxes. By definition, will need to have higher taxes so they can give these taxes back to the governments. The governments can give them back to the remaining 90% as universal basic income. So that remaining 90% can buy their products. Otherwise, the whole cycle collapses. So it's in their best interest to still do that. That's how I see the future playing out. I could be wrong, but that's how I see it playing out.
I think that tracks pretty well with what I've heard from other people as well. For that future, which is a bit terrifying, what's your time horizon there? That's not 1 year, right? That's longer. I hope we have some time.
Yeah, that's longer because you have to keep in mind also that technology evolves in different countries at different rates. And this is not just a technological issue. There's going to be lots of resistance from people accepting that. And same thing happened with the Industrial Revolution, by the way. Like when machines came in industry, people were doing riots. No, I have to keep making this piece of cloth by my hand. And eventually it happens. So if there wasn't resistance from people, it would happen in 5 years. But my estimate is going to take about 10, 15 years because of the resistance that was still happening from us collectively.
I saw a tweet the other day and people are saying AI is going to change everything. Brother, there's still 50 million people in America that pay for cable.
Exactly.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly the right answer. That's why it's going to take longer. Exactly because of that. We resist change. We resist change. And it's one of the things why we talked about longevity with Brian Johnson. He's trying to live forever. But I love this statement by Elon Musk where he says, actually, we don't want people living forever because people, once they're set in their views, they don't change. So if they live forever, they will keep their old biases and their old views infecting the newer generations. It's better off they die off and we have some fresh thinking coming. And there's actually some logic to that, actually.
It is logical.
As brutal as it sounds, there is the logic to it. Yeah.
Now, I've seen we're almost up on time, and I want to be respectful of your time here. So let's end with maybe just a couple of final questions here. So we're obviously over 2 months into 2025. What are your top 2025 priorities? What are you really excited about?
For me, I'm focused 100% on Vectara right now and the success of Vectara. We are in our growth stage of revenue. So revenue is what we're very, very focused on right now. But that doesn't change the fact that we need to keep the product competitive. So there's also lots of things that we need to be doing on the product side. So I have to say that's what excites me. That's what powers me. Exactly going back to the discussion we had earlier of building a great lasting legacy. And I'll be honest, I'm 54 years old right now. So this is probably my last one. Like by the time I'm finished with this company, I'll be like 65 or something. So I really want this to be my largest landmark on the world.
That's exciting. Well, when you IPO this one, you have to give us the first interview. It's being recorded here. So on the record that we get.
Done. It's probably be my avatar, by the way. But sure.
It still counts. It still counts. Now, you're obviously incredibly inspiring. I think anyone who listens to this is going to feel fired up. They're going to feel inspired. They're going to be ready to run through walls. What advice do you have to the younger founders who are listening in? I feel like a lot of people I talk to, there's almost anxiety about, they know AI is going to change everything, but they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. It's like overwhelming because there's so many options and the opportunity just seems so big. What advice do you have for the up and coming entrepreneurs, the founders? Like, what should they be thinking about? What should they be prioritizing and doing?
Excellent question. Now that requires an entire episode by itself. So, but my short answer, my quick reactive lizard brain answer is just do it, which is the Nike tagline. Is like, yes, that's exactly how startups are. It's chaos. You don't know what's going to work. But if you don't start, you're not going to find the answers because you're only going to find the answers by doing it and trying this and it fails and then trying that and it fails until you end up creating Twitter or you end up creating Slack. By the way, Slack also came out of the company was originally doing a game and then they ended up doing that. So just do it. Like just start. Don't let the anxiety and the analysis paralysis pause you in this current moment. Start executing. And as you go, you're going to figure it out. That's my advice.
That's great advice. And this has been such an awesome conversation. I look forward to part 2 for Unicorn Builders. But thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom, share your story. It's been incredible.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. I enjoyed this a lot.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.